So I can remove, and we'll talk a little bit about that shortly. My forte is sports performance enhancement, if we can call it enhancement. And within sports performance, it's really equestrian. My equestrian involvement did not come, it was one of the few aspects of my career that did not come along by choice. It just kind of, boom, bang, zing, zang, it happened. I started connecting with a number of people before I met you in the sport, in the equestrian world about 5 years ago. And these people, these coaches just started referring, plugging me into the equestrian world, and I just started, becoming involved in equestrian, which I absolutely adore. I just have a feel for it. I enjoy it. I love working with the people, and I can't ride a horse.
Okay, well, I'm sure there's a couple of people here who could maybe help you there, and we've got some other people who can maybe even sell you a horse. If I look through our list here, I'm not going to mention names, but I'm sure there's a couple of horses for sale. So yeah, maybe we can help you there. Now, Dr. Jules, just tell us quickly, what is it that you actually do? Because for those of you that don't know, I've been to Dr. Jules also online. He helped me a little bit when I went through a bit of a trauma and so on. And I still don't know what he does. All I know is that it did work for me. So, but maybe you can put into words what it is.
So, Jaco, what actually stuck in my mind that I decided to just kick this off with is we chatted on the phone when you were briefing me as to, what was going to happen this evening. And you said something that was quite amazing to me, and it stuck. You said to me, for me, I don't understand how electricity works. But when I flip my switch, the lights come on. And I think that's a very good analogy. So just before I take a short period of time to simply introduce what I do, I'd like to just say that, for me, the most important thing with any work, specifically my work or my own stream of work, because that's what we're talking about this evening, as long as the work is safe and as long as it's effective, as long as it actually works and as long as it's safe. So I think the fact that we flip a light switch and we don't really understand how it works, subconsciously we expect when we flip that switch, the light's going to come and we're not going to get electrocuted. Okay. So my online work, as simply put as possible, I want you to imagine that the human brain has different areas to it. And each part of the human brain works with a certain frequency. So what I've done is I've written the code to use light to stimulate the relevant parts of the brain. So assuming that we want to access a certain part of your brain that is responsible for blocking bad memories, when you had falls in your riding, when your horse bucked because it saw a green bucket, whatever, we need to block that stuff. Even if we need to go deeper and we need to block personal memories or resolve personal memories. So let's assume that there's one or two parts of the brain that's responsible for that stuff. And let's assume that those one or two parts of the brain function at a certain frequency. What I'm doing is I'm using light, called photonology, but let's call it light. I'm using light that I'm sending through the eye of the apparatus, the WhatsApp video, the Skype video. So when the person is sitting on the other side of the screen, naturally, provided they're not blind, and we have a solution for that as well, that person can see the light that I am shining at them. Now, these are not just normal lights. These are very specialized lights. And each flicker and each duration, each lifespan of each flicker, each angle of each flicker is designed in code to allow the subject to see that light. And in seeing that light, because of the code that is behind the specific flickers of the light, we are able to access your, or the person on the other side of the screen, we're able to access that person's, that specific part of that brain that we are after to do this work remotely online. So to summarize, you're looking into a camera. I'm using very special light to get into a certain part of your thought process through your eyes. And once we are in that zone, we can precipitate the changes. We can create the changes at surface nerve level, so we can physically move you past experiences. These lights, I must just say at this point, they're very clean, they're very dedicated, and they're safe. So by the time the light gets through the camera to the other side, i.e. where you or anyone else is sitting, it's gone through a process called departicularization, which means there's no funny little free radicals flying around. It's completely safe and sound. And we're able to talk about certain experiences and move these experiences or shift these experiences at nerve level. Just very briefly, the main difference, and I'm not here to compare my stream of work to any other professional, i.e. psychologist, because it is a very specialist field. But the difference with what I'm doing is, as opposed to just sitting and talking, which is what the world has only really known until the Sky of Mind project, as we call it, was put onto the map, all we really had was someone to talk to. And talking to someone that you connect with or someone that you trust is fantastic. The problem is, it's very difficult to make these changes at conscious level because the super ego is blocking that potential. So with the use of my electronics that have been specially encoded to go deeper in a safe and effective way, we can move you past experiences a lot quicker than sitting and talking the accoutrement of a dressage animal.
So you can basically sit there. I can sit here on this side with Zoom or Skype, and you can treat me with some sort of light beam and my brain picks it up. Now, what if I've got a slow internet connection?
Okay, good. So obviously we've had to pre-think all of these things, not in case something goes wrong, when something goes wrong. Something is going to go wrong. We're relying heavily on this wonderful technology, and it is wonderful. And of course, you've had situations where audio and or visual freezes, calls drop. I've got a software system that does a couple of dandy things. And the first thing that it will do is it will pause any emissions that we're doing during the treatment should a call fail. So if I'm treating you right now, Jaco, and for whatever reason the image freezes or the call drops, the part of the treatment that we're applying gets paused. It's like what happens if I'm watching a movie and there's a power cut. You don't lose that recording. It just pauses where it left off. When the power comes on, it carries on recording. So there's no way that the quality of the service or the success of the service can be interrupted by anything that could happen to the Skype, WhatsApp call, whatever virtual call it might be.
Okay, good. And now, if I want to be now helped by you, I've got some sort of issue, or one of my athletes might have. I come to you and I say, how much does all of this cost? What is price? Do you work it out?
So Jaco, there are a couple of divisions to the practice. There's mainstream, what we call maintenance, so people can come to me on a week-to-week basis and talk about stuff. And I must add at this point that it's not, as I said, my forte is equestrian and sports enhancement or sports performance, let's call it that. But I'm obviously working with any traumas that are raising their ugly head from childhood to current. We're doing a lockdown, very busy with what we're now calling lockdown claustrophobia disorder. There's obviously a lot of stuff going on. So any problem that you have that is emotionally created, I believe I can fix. Cost, it's personal because it's customized. So we don't have a menu, that you choose from, because, if we could just set a graphic rate, that would imply that it's not customized. But because it is, and because each person is an individual, the projects need to be cut and trimmed. Per se, or generally, the work is more expensive than conventional, call it psycho or sports therapy. But the results are also a lot more aggressive. So it's relative. And what I'd like to add at this point is, obviously, I've become cost sensitive because of our newfound situation globally. And whereas before, it was pretty cut and dry, there was flexibility, there was some negotiation in costs. I'm obviously prepared to be a lot more sensitive and a lot kinder because of the situation. But in summary, it is customized. It's best that whoever needs assistance can contact me. Obviously, you and I have done a lot of work, and I believe in what I like to call the old school race course gentleman's agreement. So because Jaco is at the forefront, automatically whoever contacts me from this forum will automatically qualify for good rates.
That's very good news. Now, just to talk to us a little bit, I see some questions coming in, and guys, you can put on the chat room. You don't have to send to me privately, but some questions on here. So, does it work only for people with fear? Can you help with focus, maybe, or?
Okay, all right. Okay. So, anything that is emotionally created, I can fix. Let me elaborate on that a little bit. If somebody had to come to me that had a very bad car accident and the entire frontal lobe of the brain was damaged, I don't think I'd be able to assist much. I've worked with that before and I've had some success, but ethically, I wouldn't take that person on. So what am I actually talking about? What I'm saying is that anything that has happened as a result of an emotional situation, if I can just add to that for a moment or so, because it's very important that I make myself clear. So very simply, once again, I want everybody to imagine that every event that you have encountered in your life is a brick. And to date, you've obviously got all these bricks that have formed a wall. So whatever event has happened in your life is a brick in your wall. The way you've chosen, the way you've experienced those events is the way you've cemented those bricks. So what has happened in your life and how you remember that stuff happening is completely different. So anything that has disturbed you or anything that you are not happy about that is emotionally related, fear, lack of focus, you want more mental energy, you want more drive, you don't want to procrastinate, you want to be able to sit and get degrees, you want to be able to get the best riding results possible, you don't want to be sad, you want to be happy. We can fix all of that stuff because it's emotionally related. In other words, as long as it's not due to severe brain damage, we can fix it.
Okay, another question here. Does the treatment work well for children as well? Is there an age limit, top or bottom?
I like that one. That's a good question. So I've been working in private practice for 7 years, online for 5. And obviously we still take people into the chair, patients into the chair, but let's focus on the online work. Up until about 2 years ago, I had an age restriction of 13-ish and up. Why do I say ish? Because if you were 13, you'd need to be interviewed, and it was touch and go whether you had the right mentality or emotional mentality. Now I've changed that order, and I'd like to say at this point that I will take on anybody of any age, provided that person displays in the interview, the initial interview, that person is ready or capable of the treatment. So obviously, if I'm not going to the method I would use for the youngest person I've treated was 7 years old, and obviously the method changes because we're not going to sit and talk and huck, and it's a completely, as you know, with kids, we've got to get in and we've got to get out, concentration spans. So in short, my answer is generally of any age, but that person would need to fulfill the requirements during the interview that they could be admitted or accepted into into the project.
Okay, so very much a customized thing per patient.
Very,
yes.
very, absolutely.
Another question here. What if you don't know what the event or the course might be?
Okay, another good question. So I'd like to say that generally speaking, I have fixed, let's call it 50 odd %. And obviously it's odd because I haven't done case studies on this, but I've at least half of the persons or the patient or the subject, whatever you want to call it, at least half of those issues I have fixed without even knowing what those issues are, let alone the person not knowing. And the reason is that in modern mental science, we've really come a long way, as all sciences have. Gone are the days where we need to sit and drag you through your childhood for 6 weeks. It's electronic now. We're doing even the regression back to childhood is electronic. It's safe, it's snappy, it's quick, and it's painless. So direct answer to your question, if we needed to discover something specific that was not raising its head or its ugly head, we've got electronic applications that can wiggle that stuff loose and allow it to manifest either during the day or certainly during your dream venting stages. So yes, we can, if we need to find something specific that has been suppressed too deep, we can get that stuff up. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Then we've got from one of our esteemed coaches here from the tent pegging side, the lean boxer. How do you know that you are fixed or that your athlete has got a problem? When does treatment stop?
Okay, so another good question. I've got a lot of good questions here tonight. So basically, I'm not in a habit of creating codependence. So in specialist projects, I have never worked with anybody in 7 odd years for more than 15 non-consecutive hours. And when I talk about 15 hours, I'm talking about select people with a lot of stuff that needs to be fixed, a lot. I'm not one for, come and see me once or twice a week for the next year. I don't believe in that. So if this is a statement I'm making, how do we know that you sorted out? How do we know you fixed? I'd like to say there are 2 indicators. I'd like to say that you will know, not by knowing, but by feeling. Because for me, knowing lends itself to thinking and to feeling. And you're not going to think you sorted it out. You're going to feel you sorted it out, because you can feel within yourself, by comparison to how you were before the treatments, how are you feeling now? And every single person that I've treated that I know of, perhaps there's some people listening in that have worked with me, I think will certainly agree that if you had to ask them, how did you know this worked, or how did you know you were sorted out? You feel it. You feel it. It's like, how do you know you loved? You feel it. And it's also obviously in your performance. I mean, guys like yourself, Jaco, brilliant coaches, you guys are responsible for the performance of the athlete. But the mentality is, and I'm talking about athleticism because that's why we're here, but obviously it lends itself to, the statement lends itself to all areas of mental health and emotional stability and happiness. But you guys are responsible for the performance of the rider. But if that rider so much as experiences a fear of a maths exam, a fear of a problem in a relationship, in my research, I found that working closely with certain veterinary surgeons, the horses don't know that you're afraid of the next maths exam, but they sense that something's wrong. They can certainly psychically, and I don't mean that in an airy-fairy way, they just know. They're amazing. They can just feel stuff, vibrations. And in other words, if you're riding and anything is bothering you personally, it's going to affect your riding. So how do you know you're fixed? You feel, in comparison to how you were before that, I'm just feeling good. I'm feeling sorted. And your coach will be the very first one to call me up and say, Julian, this is fantastic. I've got someone else to send to you or phone me up and say, I'm not happy. And I want my coaches to be happy. So you'll feel it. You'll know. You'll know.
Thank you. Then from Jason Phillips, if you experience a trauma in your day-to-day life, can it affect your sporting performance? Is it a guarantee to affect your performance? How your day-to-day thing, like you explained now a little bit, how does focus fit into this?
So let's imagine, once again, simply put, and I've actually written on my notice board here, simple. You must keep it simple. Imagine a liter of water, and that liter of water there's a little airspace in between the cap and the surface of the water. That little airspace is the conscious mind. And the rest of the fluid is the subconscious mind. So where am I going with this? We are affected by so much more at subconscious level than what we're aware of and what we are affected at conscious level by. So the subconscious mind is really where all the churning and the conflict and the churning of emotions comes from. That's why, you can say to somebody, and we've all, I think, had this experience. You look on your friend's face and, what's wrong? Are you okay? Not really. What's wrong? What happened? Nothing. I'm just not feeling good. But it's got to be coming from somewhere. So the answer to that question is, it will not affect your sports performance. It will affect your sports performance, and I believe, possibly, depending on the personality type, most, if not all, arenas of your life. I don't think it's possible to be affected in one part of your life without that contaminating other parts of your life, because we are emotional creatures. We think, we feel, we can't isolate this stuff. Some of us are more resilient. Jaco, it's a quality that I must just say to you now, that I've said to you before, that I'm absolutely because we have a personality, a temperament, a character, your capacity to process stuff is just amazing. And I joked with you, if you remember, and I said to you, if there were more people like you, I'd be out of business. I'd have to change my profession. So, yeah, it affects. I think it affects actually everything.
Is it like hypnotism? I want to give up smoking. Can that work?
It's not hypnotism. Admittedly, confession time, we all started off as hypnotists, all of us, all metaphysicists, and incidentally, what is metaphysics? Physics is what you can see, touch, smell, hear, and feel, and metaphysics is the invisible stuff in between. So whatever you believe in, is metaphysical. Your feelings are metaphysical. You can't see them or touch them. So it's the invisible stuff, the emotional stuff. So that is just a quick little, I should have explained that earlier, but that is the difference. So that's really what metaphysics is. To get back to that, we all started off in a, as hypnotists, but I don't practice hypnotism. The method that I'm using is called, we call it photonics or photoelectrics or photoelectronics. It's not hypnotism at all. And smoking for me is almost like an endodontist pulling out a tooth. I don't really deal with symptomatic. So I don't really work with the symptoms of problems. I like to get down to the causes, what comes before the equal sign. For me, smoking and substance abuse is a symptom of a deeper lying problem. So we can certainly treat you and discover. I've done that with success. I've treated, I think, I don't want to lie to you, I think 4 out of 7 odd people for smoking. 4 of them are cured, 3 of them are still smoking. But I'll work with what is underlying, what is the underlying problem, because anyone is standing with a cigarette in their hand or a bottle of booze in their hand and looking at this cigarette or bottle of booze and saying, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, and they're still doing it. There's an underlying problem.
Again, if you want to give up smoking, or can you get someone off drugs, whatever, how severe a problem can we realistically, not cure, but what can you help with?
Okay. Jaco, let's call it substance. Let's not discriminate. Let's call it substance. So substance is a very finicky, complex or complicated space. It's extremely complicated because it depends on the individual. It depends on what the triggers are. It depends on what their powers of association are. It's one of the most complicated areas, and to try and answer your question as simply as possible, as I would like to interview with any problem. So anybody that needs or has an issue that needs to be resolved, we need to interview. And this would also require interview, but it's a slightly different type of interview. We'd ask a lot of the same questions, but there'd be some questions that would be included that aren't, utilized in conventional questionnaire or interview circumstances. So we need to know quite a bit more about backgrounds, etc. The most important thing is that whoever I interview, I can ascertain within that interview session whether I can sort you out or not. And because my reputation rides heavily on this, if I interview and I commit to being able to resolve an issue, you can pretty much bet it's going to, thy will be done. But I'll also be equally honest and say, you know what, it's out of my portfolio, and refer you out. But fantastic people that I can refer to. I will not take on anybody unless I'm certain enough I can resolve the problem. Hope that answers.
Yes. Then another question. If it's not obvious what the problem is, will it sort itself out, or how does it work?
Okay. So another interesting one. So there's a twofold answer to this. A lot of the time we're going into a space where we don't know what the specific problems are. We're dealing with how the person is feeling at in the present in their lives. And let's say half the time, let's just call it a very crude 50-50 parameter. Half the time, in building up a person's self-worth and self-confidence, self-esteem, whatever you want to call it, those problems disintegrate. And the other 50% odd of the time, we get some results, we get certain behavioral changes, person's feeling a lot better, but they still feel there's something that's not quite back, something that's not quite sitting quite, where it should. And then we'll be able to delve deeper and, as I say, bring up whatever's remains hidden. But what I want to emphasize at this point is I can safely say that every single person I've treated, for no matter what their personal requirements were, be it sports related, be it non-sports related, every single person I've treated was united by one thing. And I'm not saying all the problems are the same, but there's one factor that unites everybody. When you elevate someone's self-worth and you diminish their fear, they become successful. And as you can, we've worked together, and the work we've done, you can see we must be cautious, but not fearful. So we'll sustain your caution. Can you imagine riding a horse without any caution? It'll be the last ride you have. So we keep you cautious, but fear is not a real emotion. Fear is a projected emotion. Fear is worrying about what might happen, not what is happening. So fear is not real. Yes. And everybody has fear. So we minimize the fear, we maximize the self-confidence, we replace the fear with self-worth or self-confidence. And a lot of the time, people just take charge of their lives. If there are specific items that still need to be resolved, you'll know. Once again, I'll know, and we'll be able to bring those elements up.
Thank you. There was a pearl of wisdom there. I see one of our international coaches, Niall Quirk from Ireland, is here. He normally comes up with some sort of sentence thing, but if you've just beaten him there with that whole, if we can minimize fear and increase self-worth, then the performance will increase. So I think we'll have that in a little quote at the end. Is it hypnotism? Instead, I want to give a smoking can work, and then you answered her, and then she's going to follow up. So does the fix stay, or can your subconscious take back control? Can you regress back into like how you were before?
I see. Okay, I see what you say. So in other words, we're asking, are the results permanent?
Yes, maybe that, yes.
Yeah, so because we're working at, I'm going to quickly throw this in here, quick, hold your breath. Epiphyseal neuroapplication, so surface nerves of the brain. So when we go through the eyes, we're able to stimulate the surface nerves of that required part of the brain that's responsible for your emotional, your feelings, your emotional performance. So the answer is yes, it is permanent. It's not a shallow fix. We're working at shallow neurological level, but the effects are very deep. So whatever effects we're creating, I haven't had any reports, and believe you me, I would have had the reports if there was any failure, to my knowledge. No one has ever brought to my attention that even after quizzing and case studies and following up with people, or after treatments, months after treatment's been performed, no one has regressed. No, it appears that the changes are permanent. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then when your pupils are at a show, what techniques can we use to put them at ease and get them into the right frame of mind to compete? So, yeah.
Okay.
Have you got any advice for coaches that how we can say one of the athletes is with you, and is there something we can do to help? Or
what I'd like to say at this point is that's a very interesting question, and now you've got my mind going, because I want to now, and I think Jaco, you know me on that personal level, that I won't be able to sleep tonight till I've found a solution to getting coaches to get involved. But because we're working directly into the mental atmosphere from this side, which is a very technical space, there's nothing that I haven't focused in that space, in that arena yet, whereby I'm working with coaches to take a system or a method to their pupils. To date, it's really been a partnership. It's been, Jaco has, or whoever has, a student that's struggling, that just can't get to the next level, can't get to the next jump level, can't get to the next performance of dressage, whatever, that person gets sent to me to do the psycho-emotional work. And that person, obviously, that student or that pupil goes back to the coach from time to time in between having sessions with me and shows improvement, obviously allows the coach to interface better, to get results through, or to get communication through a lot better because of the work I've done with that person. So it's really been a partnership to date, but it hasn't been, there's nothing that I can give you to take to your pupils. Because then we'd be going back to the whole, we'll just say this to them and just say that to them. Why do we need electronics? And this work without the electronics is useless.
Okay, then a question from Marianne Conlon. If a traumatic incident is at cellular level and only triggered subconsciously, how do you identify and treat that? Is there, like, how do you know that is the issue, and how, we know that you treat it with lights and so on, but if it's so deeply buried that no one really knows, can you get to it, basically?
So I'm a bit confused as to, I'd like to say this at this point, that for me, all the problems that I've treated, I'd like to think of these problems being rooted in the deep subconscious mind, and manifesting in the shallow subconscious mind into the conscious mind. For me, and obviously there's different schools of thought, the unconscious mind is not even really where we're really working, because the unconscious mind is so deep that it's like trying to fish underneath the lake. So basically what's going to happen is this. So whether you are a coach that has a personal issue, or whether you're a coach that obviously wants to get your students or your pupils to perform the best that they can, so that they can achieve successes, and you can also be part of that success, and be seen as in a positive light, so to speak, irrespective of what we're talking about in that space. What I want you to understand is that everyone gets interviewed, and in that interview there are certain questions that I'm going to ask you, and those questions are pretty much going to tell me whether we're dealing with issues that you are aware of or that you think you've come to me for, or whether there are deeper underlying issues. If it's not straightforward and there are deeper underlying issues, we go to secondary questions, we go to tertiary questions, and I have never needed to go beyond my third set of questions to find out what we're looking for. So let's use a closing for this question, a nice analogy. So somebody comes to me and they say, Jules, I've got a problem, and the problem is in the house. I go into the house, I look around, and there's a good chance I'm going to find the problem. Sometimes I won't, in which case I'm going to say, okay, let me scan for the problem and see specifically in which room it is. And once I get into that room, I know if it's under the bed or if it's in the wardrobe. And the next intelligent question would be how you're going to do that. What we're going to do is with a series of questions coupled with specific electronic goodies that are going to bounce through the camera, off the eyes, give us stress particulars. We were able to see whether we're hot or cold. Remember the game hot or cold? We'll be able to do a hot or cold game and navigate closer.
Thank you. So just there's another question. I think it brings it back to the equestrian thing a little bit. In that, how can we deal with? Can we help horses? Can we? Is it if it's only so cellular and working, directly with the brain and a thing? Can we work with other animals? I'm saying horses. Can we work with adopted children? Can we work with, what if someone is blind? Is that?
Right. All right. Good.
Like some funny questions around
Let's answer all of this. So if you remember, about a year and a half ago, I came up with Equestrian Plus. And Equestrian Plus was a very bold, eccentric approach to assisting the horse in its performance by using electronics, whereby we could, the rider could film both eyes of left and right eye of the horse, and I would extrapolate it on a massive screen and study the pixels of the eye, the blink rate, etc. Was it successful? Yes. The unfortunate thing is that we needed more money to fund for case studies. It became expensive, and then unfortunately, economy started shifting. We went into, I actually got a party that were very interested in getting involved, and then there were the precludes to lockdown, etc. But in direct answer to the second and third part of your question, Jaco, in my mind, and I stand to be corrected, unless you have a raving lunatic, unless you have a 20 hands high, warm blood stallion on steroids, and it's most of what I've worked with is the rider. Most of what thank God, most of what I've worked with. I mean, the people that are just flashing through my mind, the many people that I've worked with in equestrian, and I've got damn good animals, stunning horses. And it's very rarely for me, very rarely the horse. It's the person, and it's the stuff that the person's carrying around with them. And I don't want this to sound airy-fairy, but simply put, there are two areas to a rider's performance. The coaching, now they're getting great coaching. What's wrong? Obviously, the other element is that they are perturbed. There's emotional problems. There's stuff holding them back. There's fear. There might just be fear of riding. They might have had a fall. They might not be afraid of riding, but they might be terrified about a business deal that's gone sour. The horse picks up on the stuff. And I don't believe the horse understands what's going on. I believe what's going through the horse's mind is, my owner, my rider, my boss, my master, my mistress, whatever is freaked out. Oh my God, am I going to die today? So it's energies that we're transmitting. Thirdly, adopted children, whatever, it's emotional. And the main cause of conflict, as far as I'm concerned, is not disagreements, it's invisibility. So if anybody who's listening in, if you just very privately think about some of the conflicts you've had, you'll see a common denominator, that it's not really about your partner or your loved one, whoever it is, that disagreed with you. It's feeling invisible. It's when you felt invisible. It's when you felt that you weren't heard, you weren't taken seriously. That's why it gets to a point in conflict where we raise our voices. Why do we raise our voices? Because our subconscious mind says, hang on, if you shout a little louder, you might be heard this time. So whether it's, interpersonal with yourself, it's conflict within yourself, it's conflict within somebody else, it's conflict with an adopted child, it's conflict within a family, it doesn't matter where that conflict is, it's invisibility, and it can certainly be resolved. As long as a person wants to find resolve, it will be resolved.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Jules. I think you answered a lot of questions for us, and I think if some of the coaches out here, we will put Dr. Jules's details on just at the end of this webinar. I'm sure there's a lot of people who want more answers, and maybe you've just opened a can of worms and there's more questions and answers at this stage, but I'm sure that's why you're there for. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Before we go, our poll seems to be not working, but we're going to also be sending you a link on SurveyMonkey. Now, for those of you who don't know, SurveyMonkey is it's like a website that we get to ask some questions and just get some feedback from you on where you want these webinars to go. We would like to keep it free and fresh. And at the moment, we're talking about all coaching with during lockdown and after lockdown and that kind of thing. So we want to stay with that theme for now. But when you get the email from Regular, there will be a little link on it from SurveyMonkey. If you please could take the time, just quickly fill it in. It's very easy, like monkey puzzle choice things. If all of you could just go and do that, and by Monday next week, we would like to have all the info in, and we can give you the feedback on Tuesday. And then there's a YouTube channel, Equestrian Coach is a team. All these webinars we put on there. Unfortunately, you can't ask questions, obviously, because it's just a recording of it. But we're happy for you to share the link with all your friends and just keep talking about this and so on. So thank you very much again to our guest speaker, Dr. Julian. We're going to put up his details now.
Thank you, Jaco and Regular. Thank you for everybody. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. And yeah, should you need any information, I'm very open. I'm very chilled with that sort of thing. You can contact me any which way works for you, and I'll do my best to give you the best answers that I can, the best information that I can.
Thank you very much. Well, there's the details for Dr. Jules. So yeah, you can email him or send him a WhatsApp and take it all from there. And like he said, if you just mention this webinar, he will work in a special deal for you with price. So thank you very much for that one.
Absolutely. Jaco, because you've hosted this, we will provide salmon at the price of snook. Don't you worry.
Thank you very much, everyone. And please stay safe. And we'll see you next week. We'll see you next week. We've got some interesting stuff for next week as well. So yeah, we'll see you all. Thank you. Good night.
Go well. Thank you. Bye. Good night.